Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is about 3 mistakes that Libra makes in relationships. Obviously, we have relationships with more than a significant other. We have relationships with family members, friends, children in some cases. So some of these may apply to non-romantic relationships. But with Libra, I did have, let's see, one that was specifically for your partner, and that wouldn't necessarily translate to other relationships. Okay, number one, being attached at the hip. That's the one that I'm talking about. That would be your significant other. Libra rules the seventh house of relationships in astrology, so it makes sense that you specialize in relationships, and, being part of a couple is kind of your thing. And that's really cool. I remember reading a book years ago called The Ballad of John and Yoko, and it was all about John Lennon, who was a Libra, and Yoko Ono, who was, I think, an Aquarius on the cusp of Pisces, something like that. And how they just spent so much time together, like in the first few years, they were like attached to the hip, at the hip. And that kind of thing seems so romantic to me, that they were doing everything together. I thought that was like the ideal relationship. And that did not last within that particular relationship. And I don't think that was John Lennon's decision. I think that Yoko kind of started distancing herself from him because she had other interests, and she even to the point, which is kind of wacky, but you know how Aquarians roll, even like getting a side chick for him to kind of keep him distracted, and so she could do what she needed to do. So in any case, I'm sure many people wouldn't put up with that. But the point is that when you are someone who is a Libra, you have to be able to have that sense of being in a partnership, but not completely lose yourself in that other person, to the extent where you can't imagine doing anything by yourself, going out to dinner by yourself, going to a party by yourself, even if you're married or the equivalent where you're in a domestic partnership with someone and you're living under the same roof. You could go out with your friends without bringing your partner, and that wouldn't be a crime. Or they could do it without you. But if you're the kind of person that in your mind you think, oh no, we have to do everything together. And yes, I might be specifically talking to Libra sun signs who have Venus in Scorpio, perhaps. You have to really question where that's coming from. Do you believe that that is the only way to do relationships? And that if you're not constantly with that person and going out with that person, gosh, even traveling. I mean, you could travel alone, and it might just simply be because there's a certain place you want to go and that other person isn't really keen on it, or you just feel that need to kind of have alone time. And if that kind of makes you uncomfortable, that the other person wants to do it, or if you might secretly want to do it, but you think that that's not okay in a relationship and that there's something wrong with your relationship, then it's definitely something to question within yourself. Number 2, being inauthentic. This is a biggie for Libra people. And part of this, it's funny because I have number 3 is trying to keep the peace at any cost, including your own peace of mind and peace in life because you might be afraid to say no. So I put that as a separate one, but being inauthentic does definitely does kind of like connect with number 3. So I'm going to kind of talk about them together. So being inauthentic means that you try to be what somebody else wants you to be. No, actually, I take back what I said. This is primarily in romantic relationships. I think that this might be most commonplace because typically if you're in a family, other people know your personality type. But because Libra people can be like phobic about conflict, that may definitely influence your ability to be authentic. You may hide your beliefs because you're afraid of the blowback. This could be political beliefs, and a lot of Libra people are interested in things like politics and, like current events, social issues. You might be very well versed in that kind of thing, but you might be afraid of talking about it with people that you know, because especially if you have views that go against what a lot of them have, you may keep it to yourself because you feel like they're going to get upset and you don't want that. The interesting thing about that is that Libra people can make excellent debaters, and you could take any side of an argument and argue effectively because you can see like different sides of an issue. And this is one of the reasons why Libra people often gravitate towards the law, like being lawyers or paralegals, judges, that kind of thing, because you're very good at that, and you tend to be very intelligent, great communicators, but you might keep your mouth shut because you have to keep the peace. And one thing I want to say about keeping the peace is that it can be kind of controlling because it might be an excuse to keep other people from maybe saying something that you disagree with, that maybe it makes you feel imbalanced. Because remember that Libra symbol are the scales, and the scales can represent balance and therefore harmony, and Libra is ruled by Venus, which can be about harmony. And that can be like, in other words, it works both ways, where you might get off kilter if somebody says something that you consider or behaves in a certain way that you think is very uncouth, ratchet, in other words, or unfair. That's another thing that really unhinges Libra people. And so you might be trying to shut somebody up because what they're saying is pissing you off and you don't want to get pissed. And so this is an important point too, because in terms of keeping the peace, because, everybody gets angry. And if a Libra person is afraid of their own anger because they think that it's not nice and it's being mean and, or it's being unclassy to not be completely like Miss Congeniality at all times, or Mr. Congeniality, you're going to like kind of stuff your anger inside. But what happens when you do that? That can come out in passive aggressive ways, and I'm sure that Libra people have their own little ways that they kind of indicate that they're none too pleased by somebody else's behavior. And that's inauthentic. And it's also when you're being indirect, that's something that can be crazy making to other people because they're like, "Whoa, was that a dig that that person gave me?" Or are they mad at me because they have kind of like this edge to their voice, and they're usually, they're usually talking like smooth as silk, and they've got like this little hard edge to their voice, and it can make people feel uncomfortable to be around you because they're not sure if you're really being 100% with them. The ability to say no, thank you is really important, because there are going to be times when you just can't do something, or you don't want to do something, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. But being able to say it in a way that is very kind and not like you're angry that somebody had the audacity to ask you to do something because you really don't want to have to say no. Because that's something that I have experienced where, somebody asks such a person if they can do something, and because that person feels guilty saying no, but they just can't do it at that time, they'll say no, but they're like kind of upset, like, that they even were asked because they feel so guilty about saying no. Practice it and be prepared if you have been the kind of person that has just said yes when you meant no in the past. Be prepared that someone may do a double take and they may actually be a little bit peeved about it, and be okay with that. The first few times it may be scary, it may be uncomfortable, but you will get used to it and they will get used to it because they will know that when you say yes, that you're all in, that you're not just kind of feeling like a martyr and feeling resentful about it. In terms of having this attitude about being attached at the hip, it's not even really possessiveness with Libra in and of itself. Again, you may have the moon in Taurus and you may be very jealous. You may have, like I said before, you might have Venus in Scorpio and you have an issue with being overly intense in relationships. But in general, Libra is pretty good about, giving people, not being like overly possessive and giving people their space, but you may just want to be with your partner all the time. And it's not due to insecurity. You just think that that's what being in a partnership is all about. Or if you are, insecure for some reason, that is really, then it's really important that you learn how to detach and learn how to feel okay, not constantly being with that person. And of course, I mean, it's all on the spectrum. Some people are like, they have this thing called anxious attachment, where you might be anxious about, what they're doing if they're going out with their friends and it's and not involving you. And it's like, you have to be able to sit with yourself and soothe yourself and be able to make yourself feel safe. If that's something that typically you would be clingy and you'd be like always wanting to be included. One of the best things I can think of if you tend to be more of that possessive, clingy type is if they say to you, I'm going to, me and my buddies are going to go out tonight and we're going to hang out together, and say, oh, that's awesome. Have a great time. If that's something that is really hard for you to do, they might be like, okay, wait a second. What is this person going to do? As a matter of fact, you might even say, I'm going to call up my friends and do something. And it's not even like playing games. Maybe that's a good way to actually kind of break away, because a lot of times, and I'm speaking as a woman, I can't speak as a man, but I know women tend to have this, what I would call a bad habit of, if they get into a relationship, they might drop their girlfriends to be with their partner. And it's like neglecting your friendships. So make sure that you cultivate your friendships, that you don't just drop them once you get with a guy or, with another person. um you know Maybe even in same sex relationships that happens, where you drop your platonic friends. Don't do that, because you want to have a life outside of your partner. Codependency is a real thing, and even if you are generally detached, you may still think that you have to be with your partner 24/7. And it's good to have other relationships. It's good to have other activities that you're doing where you're not necessarily having to um, constantly uh, identify with your partner or to be associated with your partner. So, keeping that in mind is key when you're living your life within partnership. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated and that you got something out of it. If you would like a private reading, I do relationship readings, where I look at your chart and the other person's chart and see possible patterns that maybe, if there are certain issues that keep cropping up. But even for people who are looking for love and maybe have a track record that is puzzling or irritating to them, I look at that, your maybe your attitude towards love, and also transits that might be coming up with relationships or love coming into your life. And I do like just general chart analysis and transits and other types of career readings. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Bye.